Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to my final entry in my daily diary series. Apologies for the long delay. I know it's been 2.5 weeks, I think, before I finally posted this. So I'm going to show you what I worked on since the last time I checked in, but before I do that, a little word on what I have been up to. So, last time I made a video, I said that I was going to the Streetlight Manifesto concert, and indeed, that's what I did. It was pretty sick. Definitely one of my favorite bands, if not my single favorite band of all time. Their concerts are always a good time. And unfortunately, later that night, I made the decision to stop by a bar where I had a few too many drinks, and then I ended up misplacing my phone, and it took me a couple days to get it back. And then right when I got it back, I got sick. So then I took a few days off to recover from that. And I suppose the events of that week, and in particular of that fateful night when I stopped off at the bar, triggered a kind of introspective, meditative, reflective mode for me. And that's what I ended up doing for the past week and a half or so. I got some work done as well, but was just thinking a lot about what I wanted to do next, and I suppose how I was feeling about things in general. I feel like initially, all my videos that I made, I didn't know what I was doing. I just started making them, and I had a ton of fun making them. The first dozen or so videos I have on this channel are still my all-time favorite videos. I think they're absolutely hilarious. And that was a period of time where I almost didn't even care about what I was doing promotionally for my game. That was the point, but I suddenly found myself having so much fun making those videos that it became like an artistic expression in and of itself. And I really enjoyed doing that. And somewhere along the line, I lost the feeling for that. I started to get a little too fixated with metrics. And it's not just in the videos, there's a lot of different elements of stuff that I've been doing since I started all of this, where I find myself increasingly going off the track of what my original vision was, and instead following, I don't know what I would say exactly. It's not like I'm copying anyone or following trends per se, but feeling like I have to change things and do things in a certain way in order to be successful. But I've always thought that there's no point in even doing what I'm doing unless I can do exactly what I want to do. Otherwise, I would rather just go get a nice, comfortable 9-to-5 job for myself rather than stressing out over having to manage so much stuff that I have to do when I'm doing everything on my own. So I would like to get back to doing the original kind of videos I did, not necessarily the comedy stuff. I do have a different format in mind. I've been talking about it somewhat in these videos, but I want to go back to making properly produced, more longer edited videos, and not just in these videos, but in everything I do in general, try to get back onto the track of just exactly how I like doing things and envision doing things. And you know what, if that makes it a harder process for me in terms of business, in terms of promotion and marketing and whatever, so be it. Because at least then I'll be happy with what I'm doing and I'll feel good about it and feel like I'm being true to myself. As for these videos in particular, I think when I first started making them, maybe as a result of social isolation, I guess it was a place for me to express myself in a way where I wouldn't feel as self-conscious because nobody would be watching them. I thought that, I don't know, I had so many concerns about being exploitative about stuff, about talking about my personal life or talking about, I don't know, random issues of things and not wanting to get involved in like it always feels like anyone on social media, if you start talking about your thoughts on something, it can become too commercialized, and I didn't want to exploit that for the sake of my own success or anything like that. I eventually found myself thinking a lot, noticing during the day I'd be thinking a lot about what I'm going to talk about in my video that night. I noticed how in general I kind of lost the fun for it. It was cool to sit down and talk a little bit at night, but like it really wasn't good enough, because on the one hand, it's not actually enough of a real diary, since obviously I'm not going to go into too much personal detail about things. And at the same time, it lacks any kind of artistry to it, since I'm literally just sitting down and talking casually. But I want to get back to just expressing myself artistically in a proper sense, and like everything I do that's related to this being focused on that. Having said that, I suppose this was, in its totality, to some degree, kind of like an artistic project, and coincidentally, it did capture what I think might be not only one of the most difficult and worst periods of my entire life, but certainly during the development of this game. So I think at least it accomplished providing you with an insight into what it might be like to have this opportunity to be able to isolate yourself away from everything else and focus wholeheartedly on a project. Not a lot of people get that opportunity. So it's cool to show that, and I suppose at the same time to show that it's also not necessarily all that awesome in its own way. I think it'll be really cool to be able to look back on this in a year or so from now when I release the game and see how far I came. So yeah, I'm not really enjoying making these videos as much anymore. It had a good run though. I think I more or less accomplished what I wanted to anyway. It would have been cool to have like 300 episodes all the way up to the end of the release of the game, but whatever. I don't think it really matters, because I have, I think, much greater things in mind for what I want to do next. Alright, well I think that's more or less all I had to say about that, so let's go ahead and take a look at what I worked on this week. So first of all, I did some work on the sound effects for the gun guys, specifically with deflecting their bullets, but also I ended up working on the gunshots as well. And I listened to a lot of references from old anime shows. I wanted to get the, I don't know how you describe it, the boomy gunshot kind of sound that those shows had. And so I focused in on that, and I wouldn't say this is a final product, but I got some good prototypes, some rough work going on here. So take a listen to this. Threw in some nice classic ricochet sounds as well, which I think really helps to up the feel. And of course, the last thing I was working on, which was the boss fight at the end of Act 2. It has two phases. The first phase is very similar to the first boss fight, where it's just a straightforward sword fight. It's a little different, a little more complex, but basically you just have to survive his pattern of attacks a few times, and then he will interrupt the fight and be like, wait, I got another idea. And then one of his gunmen will come out, he'll shoot a bullet at him, and then that will trigger a kind of tennis match between you two, where you have to keep deflecting the bullet back and forth, and it'll get faster and faster, and if you can survive long enough, eventually Damien gets hit by the bullet, and that's how the fight ends. I guess that's it for this week, guys. A big thank you, of course, to everyone who has been watching these videos. I appreciate it that there was a small group of people out there who seemed to enjoy these and enjoyed listening to my rambling for 30 to 60 minutes every single day. And I hope you'll stick around for what I've got coming up next, because I think it's going to be something a lot better. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me here again next time. Peace.